The smell of burnt coffee filled my kitchen that morning, but I didn't move to turn off the pot. I just stood there, staring at the photograph in my trembling hands, a photograph that had fallen out of my daughter-in-law's purse the night before. In it, a little girl, maybe 5 years old, smiled at the camera with Claire's exact same eyes. The same dimple on her left cheek, the same way her nose crinkled when she laughed, but Claire had told us she never had children before marrying my son. My name is Margaret, and I'm 62 years old. For the past 7 years, I thought I knew my daughter-in-law. I thought I knew the woman my son David had fallen in love with. I thought I understood the quiet sadness that sometimes crossed her face during family dinners, the way she'd excuse herself when children's laughter got too loud at the park, the strange phone calls she'd take in the other room, always in hushed tones. I thought I knew her. I was wrong. Let me take you back to the beginning, to when everything still made sense. 7 years ago, David brought Claire home for Thanksgiving. She was beautiful in that understated way, long dark hair, warm brown eyes, and a smile that seemed a little too practiced, a little too careful. But I liked her immediately. She helped me in the kitchen without being asked, remembered to ask about my sister's health, and laughed at my husband Robert's terrible jokes. "Mom," David had whispered to me while Claire was setting the table, "I think she's the one." And I had hugged him, my only son, my baby boy who had grown into a man of 35, and I said, "Then don't let her go." They married 6 months later in a small ceremony at the courthouse. Claire said she didn't have much family. Her parents had passed away years ago, and she was an only child. No cousins, no aunts or uncles, just her. It made me love her more, actually. I wanted to give her the family she'd lost. I wanted to be the mother she no longer had. We welcomed her with open arms. Robert treated her like a daughter. Our Sunday dinners became sacred: pot roast, mashed potatoes, Claire's favorite apple pie that I learned to make just for her. We'd sit around our old oak dining table, the one Robert's father had built with his own hands, and we'd talk about everything and nothing. David's work at the construction company, my volunteer work at the community center, Robert's obsession with fixing up our 1967 Mustang in the garage. Claire would smile and nod, ask questions, seem interested. But now, looking back, I realized she never really talked about herself. She never shared stories from her childhood, never mentioned old friends or past relationships. She lived entirely in the present, as if she'd been born the day David met her. The first time I noticed something was off was about 3 years into their marriage. We were at a restaurant celebrating David's birthday when a woman approached our table. She was maybe in her late 50s with kind eyes and gray hair pulled back in a bun. "Claire?" the woman said, her voice uncertain. "Claire Morrison? Is that you?" I watched my daughter-in-law's face go completely white. Not just pale, white, like all the blood had drained out of her body in an instant. Her fork clattered against her plate. "I'm sorry," Claire said, her voice barely above a whisper. "You must have me confused with someone else. My name is Claire Hartley." The woman looked confused, studying Claire's face more carefully. "I could have sworn. You look exactly like someone I used to know. My apologies." She walked away, glancing back once more before disappearing into the crowd. David squeezed Claire's hand. "You okay, honey?" "Fine," she said, but her smile was too tight. "Just startled me, that's all." But for the rest of that dinner, Claire was somewhere else. Her eyes kept darting toward the door. She barely touched her food. And when I asked her about it later, in private, she just said, "Sometimes people see what they want to see, Margaret." I have one of those faces. I should have pressed. I should have asked more questions. But I didn't want to seem invasive, didn't want to make her uncomfortable. So I let it go, filed it away in the back of my mind as just one of those strange moments that happen in life. The phone call started about a year after that incident. At first, they seemed normal. Claire would excuse herself from dinner, saying it was a colleague from work or a friend checking in. But the frequency increased. Every Sunday dinner, without fail, her phone would ring right around dessert time. She'd look at the screen, her expression would tighten, and she'd say, "I'm so sorry, I have to take this." She'd walk out to the porch or lock herself in the bathroom. Through the door, I could hear her voice, low and urgent, though I could never make out the words. Sometimes she'd be gone for 20 minutes, sometimes longer. When she came back, her eyes would be red, as if she'd been crying, though she'd insist it was just allergies. David didn't seem to notice, or maybe he chose not to. He was so in love with her, so completely devoted. He'd just smile when she returned and serve her an extra large slice of pie, as if that would make up for whatever had upset her. But I noticed. Mothers always notice. One evening, I was putting away dishes in their kitchen after dinner. They lived just 2 blocks from us in a cozy little rental, when I heard Claire on the phone in the bedroom. The door was cracked open, and her voice carried down the hall. I know, she was saying. I can't keep doing this. It's killing me. Yes, she asks about it sometimes. No, I haven't told them anything. I can't. If David knew the truth, he'd never forgive me. Please, just give me more time. My hands froze on the dish I was drying. My heart started pounding in my chest. What truth? What was she hiding from my son? I forced myself to finish the dishes, to act normal when Claire emerged from the bedroom with red-rimmed eyes and a forced smile. I hugged her goodbye and told her I'd see her next Sunday, and I drove home with my mind racing, my hands gripping the steering wheel so tight my knuckles turned white. "Robert," I said when I got home, finding my husband in his workshop, "I think Claire is hiding something." He looked up from the bookshelf he was sanding, his reading glasses perched on his nose. "What do you mean?" I told him about the phone calls, about the conversation I'd overheard. He listened quietly, then set down his sandpaper and pulled me into a hug. "Maggie," he said softly. "He's the only one who calls me that. Maybe she's planning a surprise for David, or dealing with some work stress. Don't go looking for problems where there might not be any, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was very, very wrong. Last night, just last night, though it feels like a lifetime ago, David and Claire came over for dinner. It was a normal Sunday or so, I thought. Claire seemed more distracted than usual, checking her phone constantly, barely eating the lasagna I'd spent all afternoon making. After dinner, she excused herself to use the bathroom. As she stood up, her purse, one of those large canvas totes, tipped over on the chair, spilling its contents across our hardwood floor. "Oh, I've got it," I said quickly, kneeling down to help gather her things. Wallet, keys, lipstick, receipts, a pack of tissues, and a photograph. It had fallen face down, and when I picked it up and turned it over, time seemed to stop. A little girl, maybe 5 years old, dark hair and pigtails, wearing a yellow sundress covered in daisies. She was sitting on a swing, laughing at whoever was behind the camera. And her face, God, her face was Claire's face, just younger, smaller, more innocent. But it wasn't just that she looked like Claire. Written on the back in faded ink were the words, "Emma, age 5, summer 2012. I love you forever, Mommy. Mommy." My hands started shaking. I looked up and saw Claire standing in the doorway, frozen, her face pale as death. Our eyes met, and in that moment I saw everything. The fear, the guilt, the desperate pleading. "Margaret," she whispered. "Please," but I couldn't speak. I couldn't move. All I could do was stare at this photograph of a child Claire had never mentioned. A daughter. Claire had a daughter. Who is Emma? The words came out of my mouth barely above a whisper, but they might as well have been shouted. David and Robert stopped their conversation in the living room. I could feel them watching us, sensing the shift in the air. Claire's face crumbled. She took a step toward me, reaching for the photograph. But I pulled it back instinctively, holding it against my chest like it might disappear if I let it go. "Margaret?" "Please," Claire said again, her voice breaking. Can we talk about this privately?" "Talk about what?" David's voice came from behind me. He walked into the kitchen, his expression confused, concerned. "Mom, what's going on?" I looked at my son, this man I'd raised, who I'd taught to ride a bike and helped through heartbreak and celebrated every achievement with. "How do you tell your child that the person they love has been lying to them for 7 years?" "David," Claire said, tears now streaming down her face. "Baby, I need to tell you something." "I need to tell all of you something." Robert appeared in the doorway, his face grave. He'd always been good at reading situations, at knowing when something serious was happening. "Let's sit down," he said quietly. "Whatever this is, let's sit down and talk about it like adults." We moved to the living room like mourners at a funeral, slow, heavy, dreading what was coming next. Claire sat on the edge of the sofa, her hands twisted together in her lap. David sat beside her, but I noticed he didn't reach for her hand like he normally would. The photograph lay on the coffee table between us, that little girl's face smiling up at us, oblivious to the chaos she was causing just by existing. "Her name is Emma," Claire began, her voice so soft I had to lean forward to hear her. "She's my daughter. She's 12 years old now." The room went completely silent. I could hear the old grandfather clock in the corner ticking, each second stretching out like an hour. "You have a daughter?" David's voice was hollow, distant, like he was speaking from the bottom of a well. "You have a 12-year-old daughter and you never told me." "I wanted to," Claire said, and now she was sobbing, her whole body shaking. "God, David, I wanted to tell you so many times. Every day, every single day. Where is she?" I asked, my voice surprisingly steady considering my heart was hammering so hard I thought it might break through my ribs. "Where is this child?" Claire wiped her eyes with the back of her hand, smearing mascara across her cheeks. "She lives with my mother." Another bomb dropped. "Another lie exposed. Your mother?" Robert said slowly. "Claire, you told us your parents were dead." "I know." Claire's voice was barely audible now. "I know what I told you. I lied about everything. My mother isn't dead. She lives in North Carolina, about 3 hours from here. She's been raising Emma since I had to give her up." "Had to?" David stood up abruptly, pacing to the window, his hands clenched into fists at his sides. "What do you mean you had to give her up? People don't just give up their children unless—" He stopped, turned to look at her with an expression I'd never seen on my son's face before. A mixture of horror and realization. "Were you an addict? Were you in prison?" "What? No!" Claire stood too, reaching for him, but he stepped back. "No, David, nothing like that. I was young. I was only 21 when I had her. Her father," she choked on the words, "her father was abusive, violent. When I got pregnant, I thought he'd change, but he got worse. I left him when Emma was 3, but I had nothing. No money, no job, no place to live. I was sleeping in my car, trying to keep her fed and safe, and I couldn't do it. I couldn't give her the life she deserved." She collapsed back onto the sofa, her hands covering her face. "My mother offered to take her, just temporarily, until I got back on my feet. But temporary became permanent. I got a job, then a better job. I moved cities trying to start over, trying to become someone who could be a good mother. But the years kept passing, and Emma had a stable life with my mother, and I was terrified that if I disrupted everything, I'd just hurt her more." I sat there trying to process what I was hearing. This woman I'd welcomed into my home, into my heart, had been living a completely different life than the one she'd shown us. Every Sunday dinner, every holiday, every moment we'd shared. She'd been carrying this secret, this child, this whole hidden existence. The phone calls, I said suddenly, the pieces clicking into place. Every Sunday during dinner. That was Emma calling you, wasn't it? Claire nodded miserably. My mother. She lets Emma call me at the same time every week. 7 o'clock on Sunday evenings. Emma thinks I'm her aunt. She calls my mother Mom, and she calls me Aunt Claire. That was part of the agreement when I gave her to my mother. She didn't want Emma to be confused, to be hurt by having a mother who wasn't really there. Jesus Christ, David breathed, running his hands through his hair. So every week, every single week, you've been talking to your daughter and pretending she's just… What? Some random phone call? I had to. Claire looked up at him with desperate eyes. David, I was going to tell you. When we first started dating, I was going to tell you everything. But then you said, do you remember? On our third date, we were talking about families, and you said you couldn't understand people who abandoned their children. You said it was the most unforgivable thing a person could do. I did remember that. We'd been talking about a news story, about a mother who'd left her baby at a fire station. David had been so angry, so judgmental, and I'd agreed with him, never imagining that one day those words would come back like this. So you just… lied. David's voice was getting louder now, anger replacing shock. For 7 years? You let me marry you, you let me believe I knew you, and all this time you had a whole secret life? I was scared. Claire stood up again, her voice rising to match his. I was terrified that if you knew the truth, you'd leave me. That you'd think I was a horrible person. And I know that makes me a coward. I know that makes me a liar, but I fell in love with you. David. I fell so deeply in love with you that the thought of losing you was worse than the guilt of not telling you. Well, you're losing me now. David shouted, and I flinched. My son rarely raised his voice. You're losing me because you didn't trust me enough to tell me the truth. You didn't think I deserved to know that you had a child. Stop. My voice cut through their argument like a knife. They both turned to look at me. Just stop for a minute, both of you. I picked up the photograph again, studying that little girl's face. Emma, my son's stepdaughter, though he'd never known she existed. Claire? I said carefully. Does Emma know about David? About us? Claire shook her head, fresh tears falling. No, she doesn't know I'm married. She doesn't know about any of you. My mother. She thinks it's better this way. Less confusing for Emma, less painful. Less painful, I repeated, the words tasting bitter. Claire, that child is 12 years old. She's growing up without her mother, thinking you're just an aunt who calls once a week. How is that less painful? I send money, Claire said desperately, as if that made it better. Every month I send money for her clothes, her school supplies, her activities. I make sure she has everything she needs. Everything except her mother, Robert said quietly. He'd been silent this whole time, just listening, but now he spoke with a sadness that made my heart ache. Claire, I'm not judging the choice you made when you were young. I can't imagine how hard that must have been. But Emma is 12 now, almost a teenager, and you're still choosing to be absent from her life. You don't understand? Claire started, but I held up my hand. Then help us understand, I said. Because right now, all I see is a woman who's been lying to my son for 7 years. A woman who's been lying to me, to Robert, to everyone who's cared about her, and I need to understand why. Claire sank back onto the sofa, looking smaller somehow, defeated. I was ashamed, she whispered. I was so ashamed of what I'd done, of giving up my baby. And then I met David, and he was so good, so pure. He came from this perfect family with parents who loved him, who never abandoned him. How could I tell him that I was the kind of person who walked away from her own child? How could I tell you, Margaret, when you'd been nothing but kind to me, when you'd welcomed me like I was your own daughter? The pain in her voice was real. I could hear that. But pain didn't excuse 7 years of deception. The woman at the restaurant, I said suddenly, another memory surfacing. 3 years ago on David's birthday, a woman called you Claire Morrison. That's your real last name, isn't it? Your maiden name. Claire nodded. That was Mrs. Patterson. She was Emma's kindergarten teacher. I'd kept my maiden name back then, before I legally changed it to distance myself from Emma's father. When I moved here and met David, I used my middle name, Claire, instead of Sarah Claire, and took my grandmother's maiden name, Hartley, hoping no one from my past would recognize me. Sarah Claire Morrison, David said slowly, testing the name like it belonged to a stranger. I don't even know your real name. I married someone whose real name I don't know. The pain in his voice broke something inside me. This was my son, my baby, and I could see his heart shattering in real time. Part of me wanted to comfort him, to tell him it would all be okay. But another part of me was furious with Claire, furious at the deception, at the lies upon lies. I need to see her. The words came out of David's mouth like a command, not a request. He turned from the window, his face set in hard lines I barely recognized. If I have a stepdaughter, I need to meet her. I need to know this child exists. David, no. Claire jumped up, panic flooding her features. You can't just show up. Emma doesn't know about you. It would traumatize her, confuse her. Confuse her? David's laugh was harsh, bitter. She's already confused, Claire. She's been confused her whole life because her mother pretends to be her aunt. Because you've been lying to her, just like you've been lying to me. That's not fair, Claire sobbed. I was trying to protect her. No, I interrupted, my voice cutting through the chaos. You were trying to protect yourself. From judgment, from consequences, from having to face what you'd done. And I understand why, Claire. I really do. But protection built on lies isn't protection at all. It's just a prettier word for abandonment. The words hung in the air like smoke. Claire stared at me with devastated eyes, and I felt a pang of guilt for being so harsh. But it was the truth, and sometimes the truth cuts deeper than any knife. Robert stood up slowly, his joints creaking. I think we all need some time to process this. Claire, David, maybe you two should go home. Talk privately. This is your marriage, and you need to figure out what comes next. What comes next? David's voice cracked. How can there be a next when our entire relationship has been built on a foundation of lies? Claire reached for him one more time, and this time he didn't pull away. She grabbed his hands, holding them tight even as he stood rigid and unresponsive. David, please. I love you. I have loved you from the moment we met. Yes, I lied about my past, but everything else, every moment we've shared, every laugh, every kiss, every promise, that was real. That was all real, was it? David asked quietly, pulling his hands free. Or was I just convenient? A nice guy with a stable life who could help you forget about the daughter you left behind? The accusation made Claire physically recoil as if she'd been struck. How can you say that? You know me, David. You know my heart. I don't know anything, he said, his voice flat now, emotionless. I thought I did. But I don't. He walked out without another word. We heard his car start, heard the engine roar as he drove away into the night. Claire stood frozen in our living room, tears streaming silently down her face. You should go home, I said gently, despite the anger still simmering in my chest. Give him time. Give all of us time. She nodded mutely, gathering her purse, the same purse that had spilled the truth onto our floor. As she reached the door, she turned back to look at me. Margaret, she whispered, I'm so sorry. For everything. You've been so good to me, and I repaid you with lies. I don't expect you to forgive me. I need you to know that I'm sorry. After she left, Robert and I sat in silence for a long time. The photograph of Emma still lay on the coffee table, that innocent little face smiling up at us, unaware that she was the catalyst for her mother's world falling apart. I didn't sleep that night. I lay in bed next to Robert, listening to him breathe, staring at the ceiling and watching shadows from the streetlights dance across the plaster. My mind kept circling back to Emma, a 12-year-old girl who thought her mother was her aunt. Who called someone else Mom while her real mother pretended from a distance? What kind of life was that for a child? Around 3 in the morning, my phone buzzed. A text from David. Can't sleep. Can't think. Don't know what to do. I typed back, come over for breakfast. We'll talk. He arrived at 7, looking like he hadn't slept either. His eyes were red-rimmed, his hair uncombed, wearing the same clothes from the night before. Robert made coffee while I scrambled eggs, and we sat at the kitchen table in heavy silence. I keep thinking about all the times she lied, David finally said, staring into his coffee cup. Every time I asked about her family, about her past, about why she seemed sad sometimes. She had a million opportunities to tell me the truth, and she chose deception every single time. She was scared, I offered, though even as I said it, I wasn't sure if I was defending Claire or just trying to help my son make sense of the senseless. Fear isn't an excuse for lying. David's voice was hard. You and Dad taught me that. You always said that real love requires honesty, even when honesty is hard. Robert set down his coffee cup. Son, your mother and I did teach you that, and we meant it. But we also taught you that people are complicated. They make mistakes. Sometimes those mistakes start small and snowball into something they can't control. This wasn't small, Dad, David said, his voice breaking. This was a child. A whole human being that she kept secret from me. I know. Robert reached across the table, gripping David's shoulder. And you have every right to be angry. Every right to feel betrayed. The question is, what are you going to do with those feelings? That afternoon, I did something I'm not proud of. I went through Claire's social media accounts, not the ones under her current name, but under Sarah Claire Morrison. It took some digging, some creative searching, but I found them. Old Facebook posts from 8, 9, 10 years ago before she'd changed her name and started over. And there she was. A younger Claire, Sarah, with longer hair and tired eyes, holding a toddler with dark curls. Emma. The captions told a story of struggle. Emma's first day at daycare. Mommy's crying more than she is. Another night shift, another morning where I hate leaving her. She asked today when Daddy's coming back. How do I tell a 3-year-old that Daddy hurt Mommy? I scrolled further, watched the posts become less frequent, watched the light dim in Sarah's eyes with each photo. Then, abruptly, the posts stopped. No more pictures of Emma, no more updates. Just a final post dated 7 years ago. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is let go. I'm sorry, baby girl. I hope one day you'll understand. Tears blurred my vision. This wasn't a story of a woman who callously abandoned her child. This was a story of a woman who'd been broken by circumstances, who'd made an impossible choice and had been living with the guilt ever since. But did understanding her pain excuse 7 years of lies? I called my sister Diana that evening, needing to talk to someone removed from the situation. She listened quietly as I told her everything, and when I finished, she sighed deeply. Maggie, she said, what do you want the outcome to be here? What do you mean? I mean, are you looking for permission to forgive her? Or are you looking for someone to validate your anger? Because those are 2 very different things. I thought about it. I don't know. Both, maybe? I'm so angry at her for lying, but I can't stop thinking about Emma, about this little girl who doesn't even know her real mother. Then maybe, Diana said gently, this isn't really about Claire at all. Maybe it's about Emma and what happens to her now that the secret's out. 2 days later, I made a decision. I didn't tell David or Robert or Claire. I just got in my car early Friday morning and started driving toward North Carolina, toward the address I'd found on one of those old social media posts. Toward Emma. I wasn't sure what I was going to do when I got there. Knock on the door? Demand to meet this child? Tell her grandmother that her daughter's secret was out and the whole family was falling apart because of it. The 3-hour drive gave me plenty of time to think, to question my choices, to wonder if I was making everything worse. But I couldn't shake the feeling that I needed to see Emma with my own eyes, needed to understand this girl who'd unknowingly been part of our family all along. The house was small but well kept, with a tidy garden and a tire swing hanging from an oak tree in the front yard. I sat in my car across the street for 20 minutes, gathering courage, before finally forcing myself to walk up the path and knock on the door. The woman who answered was in her early 60s, with gray hair and Claire's same warm brown eyes. She looked at me with confusion and a hint of wariness. "Can I help you?" she asked. "Mrs. Morrison?" My voice came out steadier than I felt. "My name is Margaret Hartley. I'm Claire's mother-in-law. I think we need to talk." The color drained from the woman's face. "She told you," she whispered. "After all these years, she finally told you." "Not by choice," I said carefully. "I found a photograph." She had no option but to explain. "Mrs. Morrison, call me Patricia," she insisted. "Let me inside." The house was cozy, lived in, with children's drawings on the refrigerator and a bookshelf full of young adult novels. Photos lined the walls. Emma as a baby, a toddler, a gap-toothed 6-year-old, a preteen with braces. A whole life documented that Claire had missed. "Emma's at school," Patricia said, pouring us coffee with shaking hands. "She won't be home for another 2 hours. I assume you want to meet her?" "I don't know," I admitted. "Honestly, I don't know why I'm here. I needed to see where she lives, to understand." Patricia sat across from me at her kitchen table, and I could see the weight of years on her shoulders. "Sarah, Claire, I suppose she calls herself now, she comes to visit once a month. Always on a Sunday when Emma's at a friend's house or at a sleepover. She sits in this kitchen and cries and tells me she wants to be Emma's mother again, but she's too afraid." "Afraid of what?" "Afraid that Emma will hate her. Afraid that she's waited too long, that too much damage has been done. Afraid that she'll disrupt Emma's stability and make everything worse." Patricia's eyes filled with tears. "My daughter is trapped in a prison of her own making, and I don't know how to help her escape." "Does Emma ask about her?" I asked. "About Aunt Claire?" "Constantly. She wants to know why Aunt Claire can't visit more, why she only calls once a week, why she seems sad sometimes during their phone calls. I tell her that Aunt Claire is very busy with her job, that she loves Emma very much. But Emma's not stupid. She senses something's off." Patricia wiped her eyes. "Last month, she asked me if her real mother ever thinks about her. And I had to lie to her face and say I don't know, when the truth is her mother thinks about her every single day. Can I see her room?" I asked. "Emma's room?" Patricia hesitated, then nodded. "Follow me." Emma's bedroom was exactly what you'd expect for a 12-year-old girl. Purple walls covered with posters of pop stars and movie franchises. A desk cluttered with school supplies and craft projects. A bookshelf overflowing with well-loved paperbacks. A bulletin board pinned with photos of friends, school events, birthday parties, and in the center of that bulletin board, a single photo that made my breath catch. Claire, Sarah, holding baby Emma in a hospital bed, looking exhausted and terrified and impossibly young. Someone had drawn a heart around the photo in pink marker. "She doesn't know that's her mother," Patricia said quietly from the doorway. "She thinks it's just a photo of me and Aunt Claire when Emma was born. She keeps it there because she says Aunt Claire looks happy in it." I sank onto Emma's bed, overwhelmed by the tragedy of it all. This child, sleeping under this roof, surrounded by evidence of a mother's love that she couldn't see. Aunt Claire, living 2 hours away, tormented by the choice she'd made years ago. Mrs. Hartley, Margaret. Patricia sat beside me. "Why are you really here?" "Because," I said slowly, "my son is talking about divorce. He feels betrayed by the lies, and I understand why. But seeing this, seeing Emma's life, I keep thinking that if David leaves Claire, that little girl loses her last chance at having her mother back in her life. And that feels wrong somehow. You want to fix this? Patricia said. It wasn't a question. I want to understand it first. Then maybe figure out if it can be fixed. Patricia was about to respond when we heard the front door open downstairs. A young voice called out, "Grandma, I'm home early. Coach canceled practice." We both froze. Patricia's eyes went wide. That's Emma. Before I could react, before I could decide if I should hide or leave or stay, a girl appeared in the bedroom doorway. She had Claire's dark hair pulled back in a ponytail, braces glinting when she smiled, wearing a soccer uniform with grass stains on the knees. She looked at me with curious eyes, those same brown eyes I'd seen in the photograph, in Claire's face, but younger, more innocent. "Grandma, who's this?" Emma asked. Patricia stood quickly. This is a friend of mine, sweetie. Mrs. Hartley." "Hi," Emma said, polite but clearly wondering why a stranger was in her bedroom. "Are you the lady who's helping Grandma with the fundraiser?" I had no idea what fundraiser she meant, but I nodded. "That's right." "Cool." Emma dropped her backpack on the floor. "Grandma, can I call Aunt Claire? I know it's not Sunday, but I got an A on my history project and I want to tell her." My heart clenched. This child, so eager to share good news with the aunt who was really her mother, so innocent to the complicated web of lies surrounding her. "Sweetie, Aunt Claire's probably at work," Patricia started, but I interrupted. "Actually," I heard myself say, "I think Aunt Claire would love to hear about your history project. Why don't you give her a call?" Patricia shot me a warning look, but Emma was already pulling out her phone, dialing with the ease of someone who'd made this call 1,000 times. "Aunt Claire." Emma's face lit up when Claire answered. "Guess what? I got an A on my history project. The one about women's suffrage that you helped me with. Mr. Peterson said my research was excellent." I could hear Claire's voice on the other end, muffled but warm, congratulating her daughter without acknowledging she was her daughter. Emma chatted for a few more minutes about school, about soccer practice being canceled, about a movie she wanted to see with friends. Normal 12-year-old conversation. Then she said something that made my blood run cold. "Aunt Claire? Can I ask you something?" Her voice got quieter, more serious. "Why don't you ever come visit me? Like in person? It's been so long since I saw you. Don't you miss me?" The silence on the other end of the phone was deafening. I watched Emma's face fall as whatever Claire was saying, probably the same excuses about work and being busy, failed to satisfy her. "Okay," Emma said finally. Her voice retry Zeke continue. "Okay," Emma said finally, her voice small. "Yeah, I understand. I love you too. Bye, Aunt Claire." She hung up and stood there for a moment, staring at her phone with an expression far too sad for someone her age. Then she seemed to remember we were there, and the smile returned to her face, but it didn't reach her eyes. "I'm gonna go do my homework," she said, grabbing her backpack. "Nice to meet you, Mrs. Hartley." After she left, Patricia and I sat in heavy silence. "That," Patricia said quietly, "is what happens every time." Emma asks. Claire makes excuses, and that little girl goes to bed wondering why she's not important enough for her aunt to visit. Except she's not really asking her aunt. She's asking her mother, and her mother keeps choosing the easy lie over the hard truth. I drove home in a daze, barely remembering the 3-hour trip. My mind was full of Emma's face, that momentary sadness before she masked it with a smile. How many times had she done that? How many times had she pretended she was okay with phone calls and empty promises? The moment I got home, I called Claire. She answered on the first ring, her voice anxious. "Margaret, is everything okay? Emma said you were at my mother's house. We need to talk," I said. "Now come to my house." She arrived 30 minutes later, looking terrified. David's car was in the driveway. He'd been staying with us since the revelation, but I'd asked him to give us privacy. This conversation needed to happen woman to woman, mother to mother. Claire sat on my sofa looking smaller than I'd ever seen her, her hands twisted together in her lap, her eyes red from what I assumed was constant crying. "I met her," I said without preamble. "I met Emma." Claire's face went white. "You what?" "I drove to North Carolina. I met your mother. And Emma came home early from school, and I saw her, Claire. I saw your daughter." "You had no right," Claire started, but I held up my hand. "No, you don't get to tell me about rights. Not after 7 years of lying to my son, to me, to everyone who cared about you. You gave up the right to dictate terms when you built your entire life on deception." The harshness of my words made her flinch. But I pressed on. "That little girl asked you on the phone today why you never visit her. Do you know what I saw on her face when you gave her excuses? I saw a child who's been rejected so many times she expects it. She expects the people she loves to choose everything else over her. I'm trying to protect her." "From what?" I demanded. "From having a mother who loves her? From knowing the truth? Claire, that child is 12 years old. She's not going to stay innocent forever. One day, maybe 1 year from now, maybe 5, she's going to figure out the truth. And when she does, she's not going to remember that you were trying to protect her. She's going to remember that you lied to her for her entire life." Tears streamed down Claire's face. "I don't know how to fix this. I don't know how to undo 12 years of mistakes." "You start," I said, my voice gentler now, "by telling the truth. To Emma, to David, to everyone. Yes, it's going to be hard. Yes, it's going to hurt. But it's the only way forward." That evening, I convinced David to sit down with Claire. I didn't leave the room. I'd earned my place in this conversation, but I promised to stay quiet unless needed. They sat across from each other in my living room. Two people who'd once been so in love they couldn't imagine life apart, now looking like strangers. "I met Emma today," David said abruptly. "Mom told me. I drove to North Carolina after she got back. I needed to see for myself." Claire's eyes went wide. "David, she looks like you," he continued. "Same eyes, same smile. She's beautiful, Claire. Your daughter is beautiful." "I know," Claire whispered, "but she doesn't know you're her mother. She doesn't know I exist. She doesn't know that her mother got married and started a whole new life and just left her behind. It wasn't like that." "Then tell me what it was like." David leaned forward, his voice intense. "Because I've been trying to understand for days. I've been trying to figure out how the woman I love, the woman I thought I knew better than anyone, could keep something this massive secret. And I can't make it make sense, Claire. I can't." Claire took a shuddering breath. "When I met you, I was so broken. I'd spent years hating myself for giving up Emma, for not being strong enough to raise her on my own. I'd convinced myself I was a terrible person, a failure as a mother. And then you came along, and you were so good, so kind. You made me feel like maybe I wasn't broken after all, like maybe I deserved to be happy." "So you lied to me," David said flatly. "So I lied to you," she agreed. "Because I was terrified that if you knew the truth, you'd see me the way I saw myself. As someone who didn't deserve love, who didn't deserve a second chance." "But I would have understood," David said, and his voice cracked. "If you'd told me from the beginning, Claire, I would have understood. We could have figured it out together. We could have brought Emma into our lives, given her a family." "I know that now," Claire sobbed. "God, David, I know that now. But I was so scared. And the longer I waited, the harder it became to tell you. It was like I dug a hole and kept digging, and eventually, I was so deep I couldn't see the way out. Robert came home late that night to find all of us still in the living room. Me, David, and Claire, emotionally exhausted but still talking. He assessed the situation with one look and went to make coffee. "So what happens now?" he asked when he returned, handing out mugs. "Because sitting here drowning in guilt and blame isn't solving anything." "I want a divorce," David said, but his voice lacked conviction. "Do you?" Robert asked. Or do you want your wife to stop lying? David was quiet for a long moment. I don't know anymore. I think, I said carefully, that what needs to happen next isn't about David and Claire's marriage. It's about Emma. Everyone turned to look at me. That little girl deserves to know her mother. She deserves to know the truth, even if the truth is painful. And Claire, whether you stay married to my son or not, you need to stop hiding from your daughter. Claire's face crumbled. What if she hates me? What if I tell her the truth, and she never forgives me? Then you deal with it, I said firmly. You live with the consequences of your choices, just like the rest of us do. But at least she'll know. At least she'll have the option to have a relationship with you if she wants one. Margaret's right, Robert added. This secret has already destroyed enough. It's time to let the light in, even if it hurts. David looked at Claire for a long moment. If you do this, if you tell Emma the truth, I'll go with you. I'll support you through it. I'm not promising we'll stay married. I'm not promising I'll forgive everything. But I won't let you face that alone. It was the first kindness he'd shown her in days, and it broke something open in Claire. She crossed the room and fell to her knees in front of him, sobbing into his lap. I'm so sorry, she kept saying. I'm so sorry. He didn't pull away, but he didn't embrace her either. He just let her cry, his hand hovering over her head like he wanted to comfort her, but didn't know if he still had the right. The next 2 weeks were a blur of planning and preparation. Claire spoke with her mother, with a family therapist, with Emma's school counselor. Everyone agreed that Emma needed to be told the truth, but it had to be done carefully, with support systems in place. The therapist suggested that Claire write Emma a letter first, explaining everything so Emma could process the information privately before they met face to face. Claire spent days on that letter, writing and rewriting, crying over every word. She showed me the final draft, and reading it made me cry. It was raw and honest and heartbreaking. It was everything Claire should have said years ago, but had been too afraid to voice. We drove to North Carolina on a Saturday morning. Me, Robert, David, and Claire. Patricia had told Emma that some important family friends were coming to visit, that there was something important everyone needed to talk about. The 3-hour drive was silent. Claire sat in the back seat clutching the letter, her face pale, her breathing shallow. David sat beside her, close but not touching, his expression unreadable. When we arrived, Patricia met us at the door. She looked as nervous as we felt. She's in her room, Patricia said quietly. She knows something big is happening. She's scared. So am I, Claire whispered. We gathered in Patricia's living room. Emma came down the stairs slowly, her eyes darting between all of us, these strangers in her grandmother's house. Tension thick enough to cut with a knife. Emma. Sweetie, Patricia said, guiding her to sit on the sofa. These are some people who care about you very much. This is Mrs. and Mr. Hartley, and this is David. And you know Aunt Claire. Emma looked at Claire, confusion written across her young face. Why is everyone here? What's going on? Claire's hands were shaking so badly she could barely hold the letter. Emma, there's something I need to tell you. Something I should have told you a long time ago. Okay, Emma said slowly, her wariness increasing. I wrote you a letter, Claire continued, her voice breaking, because I didn't think I could say all of this out loud without falling apart. Would you read it? Emma took the letter with hesitant hands. The room fell silent as she unfolded it and began to read. We all watched her face, watched confusion turn to shock, watched shock turn to disbelief, watched tears start to fall. When she finished, she looked up at Claire with an expression that broke my heart. You're my mom? She whispered. My real mom? Claire nodded, tears streaming down her own face. Yes, I'm your mom. And I'm so sorry. Emma stood up abruptly, the letter falling from her hands. You lied to me. My whole life, you lied to me. Emma. Patricia reached for her, but Emma jerked away. No. Everyone lied to me. You said my mom left because she couldn't take care of me. that she loved me but couldn't be my mom. But she was here. She was calling me every week, and I thought she was my aunt, but she was my mom, and she didn't want me. That's not true, Claire said desperately, standing too. Emma, I wanted you. I've always wanted you. I just didn't know how to be your mom. So you pretended to be my aunt instead? Emma's voice was rising, 12 years of confusion and pain pouring out. You called me once a week and sent me birthday cards signed Love Aunt Claire when you should have been here? When you should have been my mom? David stepped forward. Emma, I know this is a lot. Who are you? Emma turned on him. Why are you even here? I'm your mom's husband, David said gently. I'm your stepfather, I guess. I only found out about you a few weeks ago. Your mom never told me about you either. Emma's face crumpled. So I'm just this secret that nobody wanted to deal with? This embarrassing mistake that had to be hidden away? No! Claire moved toward her, but Emma backed away. Emma, please, you were never a mistake. You were never something to be ashamed of. I was ashamed of myself, of my failures, but never of you. Then why? Emma screamed, and the sound was so full of raw anguish it made everyone in the room flinch. Why did you leave me? Why wasn't I enough to make you stay? The question hung in the air. The one question every abandoned child asks. The question that no answer ever truly satisfies. Claire sank to her knees, eye level with her daughter. You were always enough. You were more than enough. Emma, when I gave you to Grandma, I thought I was doing the best thing for you. I thought you deserved a stable home with someone who could take care of you properly. I thought I was being selfless, but I see now that I was just being a coward. I was running away from the hard work of being your mother. I needed you, Emma sobbed. I watched all my friends with their moms, and I had Grandma, and I love Grandma, but it's not the same. I needed my mom, and you were just gone. I know, and I can never make up for that. I can never give you back those 12 years. Claire's voice was steady now, despite her tears. But I'm here now. I'm here and I'm telling you the truth, and I'm ready to be your mother if you'll let me. Not from a distance. Not as Aunt Claire, as your mom. Emma didn't answer. She turned and ran upstairs, and we heard her bedroom door slam. Patricia started to follow, but the therapist who'd been sitting quietly in the corner shook her head. Give her time to process, Dr. Williams said gently. This is a lot of information for a child to handle. She needs space. We waited for an hour, then 2. Claire paced the living room like a caged animal, wringing her hands, jumping every time there was a sound from upstairs. David sat with his head in his hands. Robert and I held hands on the sofa, both of us silently praying for some kind of resolution. Finally, Emma's door opened. She came downstairs slowly, her eyes puffy from crying, clutching a stuffed rabbit that looked well-loved and very old. You gave me this, she said to Claire, holding up the rabbit. When I was 3, before you left, Grandma told me it was from Aunt Claire, but it was from you. From my mom. Claire nodded, fresh tears falling. His name is Hopper. You carried him everywhere. You wouldn't sleep without him. Emma looked down at the rabbit, then back at Claire. I don't know if I can call you Mom yet, she said quietly. I've been calling you Aunt Claire my whole life. Mom is Grandma. I don't know how to change that in my head. You don't have to change anything you're not ready to change, Claire said quickly. You can call me Claire or Aunt Claire or nothing at all. Whatever feels right to you. Emma thought about this. Can I ask you questions? About why you left? About my dad? About everything? Yes, anything. I'll answer anything you want to know. And this man, Emma pointed at David. You married him without telling him about me? I did, and that was wrong. Does he hate me? Emma asked in a small voice. For ruining your marriage? David stood and walked over to Emma, crouching down to her level. Emma, listen to me. None of this is your fault. You didn't ruin anything. The adults in your life made complicated choices, and you're dealing with the consequences of those choices, but none of it is your fault. And I don't hate you. I don't even know you yet, but I'd like to, if you're okay with that. Emma studied his face for a long moment. Do you love her, my mom? It was a question that demanded honesty. David glanced at Claire, then back at Emma. I don't know right now. I love the woman I thought she was. I'm trying to figure out if I can love the woman she actually is. Does that make sense? Emma nodded slowly. Kind of. Like when you think someone is one way, but they turn out to be different? Exactly like that. That's how I feel too, Emma said, looking at Claire. I thought Aunt Claire was just this person who called me sometimes. Now she's my mom. It's weird. It's very weird, Claire agreed, her voice thick with emotion. Emma, I know I can't fix 12 years in one day. But can I? Can I hug you? Just once? Emma hesitated, and the room held its breath. Then, slowly, she walked toward Claire. It wasn't a run, wasn't the enthusiastic embrace of a child who'd been waiting for this moment. It was cautious, uncertain, the hug of someone testing unfamiliar waters, but it was a start. Claire wrapped her arms around her daughter and cried into her hair, 12 years of longing and regret pouring out. Emma stood stiffly at first, then gradually, slowly, her arms came up to hug back. When they separated, Emma wiped her eyes. So what happens now? Now, Dr. Williams interjected gently, we take things one step at a time. Your mom, Claire, can start visiting more regularly. You two can spend time together, get to know each other properly. No more lies, no more secrets. Just honesty, even when it's hard. And if I decide I don't want her in my life? Emma asked, testing boundaries. Can I say that? Yes, Dr. Williams confirmed. You have complete control over this relationship. Your feelings matter most, Emma looked at Patricia. Are you still my mom too? Patricia's face crumbled. Oh, sweetie, I will always be here for you. Nothing changes that. So I can have two moms? You can have as many people who love you as you want, Patricia said, pulling Emma into a hug. We stayed in North Carolina for the rest of the weekend. Claire took Emma out for ice cream, just the two of them. And when they came back, Emma was actually smiling. They talked about school, about soccer, about Emma's favorite books. Normal mother-daughter conversation, building from scratch. David spent time with Emma too. He showed her pictures on his phone of the house he and Claire lived in, of his workshop where he built furniture as a hobby. He asked about her interests, really listened to her answers. I watched my son trying to figure out how to be a stepfather to a child he'd just met, and I was proud of him for trying. On Sunday before we left, Emma pulled me aside. Mrs. Hartley? You can call me Margaret, sweetheart. Or Grandma, if you want. I'm your step-grandmother now, I suppose, Emma smiled shyly. That's weird to think about. Grandma Margaret. She tested the name. Can I ask you something? Anything. Do you hate my mom? For lying to your son? I thought carefully about my answer. I'm angry with her. I'm disappointed. But I don't hate her. I think she made choices based on fear. And those choices hurt a lot of people. But I also think she's trying to fix things now. And that takes courage. My friend Madison's parents got divorced last year, Emma said quietly. Is that going to happen to David and my mom? I don't know, honey. That's something they have to figure out. I hope they don't, Emma said. I know that's selfish since I just met David and he's probably super mad at her. But I don't want to be the reason they break up. I knelt down to her level. Emma, listen to me. Adults make their own choices about their relationships. If David and Claire's marriage doesn't work out, it won't be because of you. It'll be because of the secrets your mom kept. You are not responsible for fixing their relationship, just like you weren't responsible for causing the problems. Okay? She nodded, but I could see the worry still in her eyes. This child had already carried too much guilt for things that weren't her fault. The months that followed weren't easy. Claire drove to North Carolina every weekend without fail. Sometimes Emma was excited to see her, chattering nonstop about school and friends. Sometimes she was cold and distant, punishing Claire for 12 years of absence with silent treatment. It was 2 steps forward, 1 step back, but it was progress. David and Claire lived in the same house, but separate lives for a while. He took the guest room. They communicated politely but distantly, like roommates rather than spouses. But slowly, gradually, they started talking. Really talking. Claire opened up about her past in ways she never had before. About the abuse she'd suffered, about the poverty, about the desperate choices she'd made. And David listened. He was still hurt, still angry, but he listened. One evening, about 6 months after the truth came out, Emma came to our house for dinner. It was the first time she'd visited, and she was nervous at first, fidgeting with her napkin, speaking in quiet monosyllables. But then Robert brought out his old photo albums, pictures of David as a child, and Emma's curiosity won over her nervousness. He looked like that? She laughed, pointing at a picture of 8-year-old David with a terrible haircut and missing front teeth. Even worse in person, Robert teased. Kid ran into every door frame in the house. I was learning spatial awareness. David protested, but he was smiling. It was the first real smile I'd seen from him in months. Emma flipped through more pages, asking questions about David's childhood, about our family traditions, about what he was like growing up. And slowly I could see connections forming. This little girl getting to know her stepfather through stories and shared laughter. After dinner, Emma helped me with dishes, without being asked, just like her mother used to do. Grandma Margaret? She said as she dried a plate. Can I ask you something? Of course, sweetheart. Do you think people can change? Like really change? I thought about Claire, about the frightened young woman who'd made impossible choices, who'd built a life on lies because she didn't think the truth was good enough. About the woman she was trying to become now, honest, present, brave. I think, I said carefully, that people can change if they want to badly enough. But change is hard. It requires admitting you were wrong, facing consequences, and doing better even when doing better is painful. My mom's changing, Emma said quietly. She's different now than she was before. She answers my questions, even the hard ones. She doesn't make excuses anymore. How do you feel about that? Emma was quiet for a moment. I'm still mad at her, but I'm also, I don't know. I like having her around. I like knowing my real mom. Does that make sense? Perfect sense. 1 year after I found that photograph, David asked Claire to meet him at the park where they'd had their first date. He'd been thinking, he said. He'd made a decision. Claire called me that morning, terrified. He's going to ask for a divorce. I know he is. Margaret, I can't lose him. I can't lose both him and 12 years with Emma. Claire, I interrupted gently. Whatever happens today, you'll survive it. You've survived harder things. When David came home that evening, I was waiting on the porch. He sat beside me, and we watched the sunset in silence for a few minutes. I told her I want to try, he said finally. Really try. Not just stay married because it's easier than divorce, but actually work on rebuilding our relationship. Relief flooded through me. David, I'm so glad. But, he continued, I also told her it won't be easy. She has to earn back my trust. She has to prove that she can be honest, even when honesty is uncomfortable. And she has to make room in her life for Emma, because I'm not interested in being married to someone who keeps running from hard things. What did she say? She agreed. She said she'd do whatever it takes. He turned to look at me. Mom, did I make the right choice? Do you love her? He thought about it. I love who she's trying to be. I love the Claire who's brave enough to face Emma every weekend, even when Emma's angry with her. I love the woman who's in therapy working through her past. I don't know if I can ever love her the way I did before, with that blind trust. But maybe we can build something different, something stronger because it's based on truth instead of illusion. Then yes, I said, you made the right choice. Now, 2 years after The Secret came out, I sit here writing this story. Emma is 14 now, a freshman in high school. She splits her time between Patricia's house and Claire and David's. She calls Claire Mom and Patricia Mama Pat. She calls me every Tuesday evening just to talk, to tell me about school and friends and normal teenage things. David and Claire are still together. They go to couples therapy every week. They have good days and hard days, but they're committed to working through it. They're even talking about trying for another baby, a sibling for Emma, a fresh start for them. Patricia has become one of my closest friends. We talk almost daily, two women who love the same child in different ways, who are learning how to coexist in this complicated family structure we've built. As for Emma, she's thriving. She's captain of her soccer team, honor roll student, surrounded by friends who love her. She has therapy once a week to process everything she's been through, and she's doing the work of healing. Last month, she wrote an essay for school about her family. She brought it to show me, and with her permission, I'll share part of it here. My family isn't traditional. I have two moms, a stepdad, two sets of grandparents, and a history more complicated than most people's. For a long time, I was angry about that. I felt cheated, lied to, abandoned. But I've learned that families aren't defined by how they start. They're defined by how they choose to show up for each other, even when showing up is hard. My mom made mistakes, big ones, but she's spending every day trying to make it right. And that takes more courage than never making mistakes in the first place. Reading those words, I cried. This wise, compassionate girl who'd been through so much and come out the other side with her heart still intact, still capable of forgiveness, still capable of love. So what did I learn from all of this? I learned that secrets destroy. They corrode relationships from the inside, eating away at trust until there's nothing left but hollow shells of connection. Claire paid for her secret with 12 years of her daughter's childhood and nearly lost her marriage. But the biggest cost was to Emma, an innocent child who grew up wondering why she wasn't enough. I learned that truth, no matter how painful, is always better than comfortable lies. When the truth finally came out, it hurt everyone involved. But it also freed us. It gave Emma a real relationship with her mother. It gave David and Claire a chance to build something authentic. It gave all of us permission to stop pretending. I learned that people can change, but only if they're willing to do the hard work. Claire didn't just apologize and expect everything to be forgiven. She went to therapy. She showed up for Emma every single weekend, even when Emma pushed her away. She answered hard questions honestly, even when the answers made her look bad. She earned her second chance, day by difficult day. I learned that family isn't always blood, and it's rarely simple. Emma has a biological mother, a grandmother who raised her, a stepfather who's learning to love her, and step-grandparents who welcomed her with open arms. Her family is complicated and messy and imperfect, but it's full of love. And I learned that forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. Emma still has days where she's angry at Claire for missing 12 years. David still has moments where he wonders what else might be hidden. But they're choosing to move forward anyway, to build new memories instead of staying trapped in old pain. As for me, I learned that being a mother and a grandmother means loving your children even when they make terrible choices. It means standing by them as they try to fix their mistakes. It means knowing when to step in and when to step back. It means accepting that the families we build are rarely the ones we imagined, but they can still be beautiful in their own imperfect way. My name is Margaret. I'm 64 years old now, and this past 2 years has taught me more about family, forgiveness, and the price of secrets than all the years before combined. So I'll leave you with this question. If someone you loved had been hiding a secret this big, a whole child, a whole past, a whole hidden life, could you forgive them? Would you walk away, or would you stay and fight for the relationship? There's no right answer. Every situation is different. Every family has to make their own choices. But I'll tell you what I hope. I hope that if you're hiding something, you find the courage to tell the truth before the secret destroys you. I hope that if someone you love confesses something difficult, you can find compassion alongside your anger. I hope that you remember people are more than their worst mistakes. And I hope that if you're an Emma, a child caught in the middle of adult choices, you know that none of it was ever your fault. You deserved better. You always deserved better. Thank you for listening to my story. I'd love to hear yours. Have you experienced something similar? How did you handle it? What would you have done in my place? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And if this story touched your heart, please share it with someone who might need to hear it. Sometimes knowing we're not alone in our struggles is the most healing thing of all. Until next time, take care of each other. Hold your families close, but hold the truth closer. Because at the end of the day, love built on lies will always crumble. But love built on honest ground, no matter how rocky, has a chance to grow into something beautiful. My name is Margaret, and this is my story.